You got here? All right, perfect. You want to just get started? All right, perfect. Well, thanks again, everybody, for showing up. Again, really, very simply, what we want to do here is I'm going to do probably a quick little 5 or 10 minute presentation on the overview of what the program development rotation is all about, what we're trying to do with it, and hopefully why folks like yourselves should be interested. And then more importantly, we're going to have, we've got a few of the folks that are in the current rotation either here or by the magic of blue jeans online. So we can ask some questions and have them talk about what it's really like. My name, for those that I didn't introduce myself to, is John Harvey. I'm a business development executive in TCP, which used to be TDC, as the names are changing. So we're the Technology Commercialization and Partnership organization. And this is being really sponsored by us in conjunction with the Argonne Commercialization Council, which is really obviously the folks that are looking at how do we commercialize technologies, how do we get technologies out of the lab. So, really what is the program development rotation? What's its main purpose? Really, there's two main objectives. One, obviously, is we want to find people that have a great passion about a particular topic that they think could be bigger than what it is today, with a little bit of help and support that we can build on that. And then, equally as important is we also want to develop the next leaders of the lab, right? That's really part of this as well, is how do we help identify and provide support to folks that we want to be the next leaders of the lab that are showing interest in going down that path. What is it? Very simplistically, high level, it's you get a year that is half funded by TCP. So the ultimate plan, and you can ask these guys how much time they really spend, but the ultimate plan is you're spending roughly 50% of your time actually developing the program and all of the behind the scenes stuff it takes to do that. And the other 50% is still on your day-to-day research that's supporting obviously what we're trying to develop here. And we did that on purpose. We didn't want to pull people completely out of the research, because a year out of research and you're almost starting over in a lot of cases, right? Obviously. But we felt it really takes time and it takes a lot of energy and effort to do this correctly. Right now, like we said, it's up to a year in length, and renewals are possible if we see something that's really interesting but it's not quite ready to move on. I think another thing that's been really valuable is mentorship from senior lab folks here as well, of getting sort of getting their input on what's going on and getting their buy-in. And then really the team. So it's not just me. We have the entire team in TCP, legal, mission, basically everything in mission support that's here to really try to help the success. And again, the ultimate goal is, we're looking for something that we can truly develop a program that in the next 3 to 5 years could be that, it's $10 million a year type of a program. If it's 8 million, nobody's gonna run away. If it's 100,000, we might be less excited about it. But from that standpoint, again, really trying to target early to mid-career researchers. And I can't stress this enough, the whole idea about vision and passion. I come from, before I was in Argonne, of sort of serial entrepreneurship, and if you don't have the vision and the passion to do it, you're not going to, because it does take a lot of work from that standpoint. What's the process? You can go on Inside Argonne. It has the details behind how to fill out the application, and it's a 2-page application, pretty straightforward. And the due date is June 5th, so basically a month to go down that path. And so from a process, much like we did with the first group, we'll get all the applications in early June. we have a few different groups that look through those applications, give their recommendations to really sort of narrow that down to the top, whatever that magic number is, 5, 10, in that space. And then those top people actually go through fairly intensive interviews, I would say, for those who have gone through them. I think they're with a lot of different sort of senior lab leadership here and different folks to get their perspectives. And then again, ideally, we're looking to get 2 to 3 folks selected as awardees of the next cohort. So again, from a timeline standpoint, applications are going to be due June 5th. The ultimate goal is that we've gone through the interviews and have sort of selected the folks into cohort 2 by the 10th of July, and starting with the new fiscal year in October. And the reason that we're doing this now, which I've been asked by a number of people, is when we did this with cohort 1, we announced who the first cohort was in early September, and then they started October 1st. And as you can imagine, you guys don't just happen to have a lot of extra time on your hands to do this, and especially when we're saying 50% of your time. And I think that was something that we realized, should have been obvious, but we realized after the fact that, hey, if we announce it and give everybody 2 to 3 months to sort of look at projects that aren't core to this, that you could offload to other folks or move some of that other work around. So you're really ready to hit the ground running, sort of the 1st of October as you start. We had sort of a slow start, I think, in the first month or two, going through that. Again, applications, it'll say all of that on the Inside Argonne page, but send those to me, and I'll get them in front of the group after June 5th from that standpoint. And this is a slide, I'll just leave this up here as we go through sort of any questions that you folks have, but this is a slide that sort of in one very nice, simple infographic talks to exactly what we're trying to do. And I also like this slide because it also shows what mission support can help you with. So I had a very horrible looking PowerPoint slide that just said, hey, these are the really bullets that we're trying to do. And I sat down with SEPA Creative Services and said, I want to make this something that gets the point across relatively quickly and easily, but looks a heck of a lot better than what I did, and lo and behold. And this is one of the resources that I think everybody's really taken advantage of quite a bit in this program, is spending time with SEPA and the Creative Services folks to say, you know exactly what you're trying to say. You guys know technically what you're trying to do and the point you're trying to get across. What they can do is make it easier to a broader audience, which is really what we're looking at in this space. So again, it's really having that passionate PIs, working with the support, and then really developing some basic, what I call business skills, and developing plans to really build this program. And at the end of the day, the goal is we're adding impact to the lab. So we're looking for, can I bring more funding into the lab, whether it's DOE funding, other government, funding agencies, industry funding, or more likely than not, a combination of all of those, to bring more money so that we can do more interesting research and continue to do the stuff we like to do. So any questions on any of this before I let you ask these guys questions? Perfect. Well, I will get out of the way, and then you guys feel free to ask these folks questions. So again, maybe for the interest of everybody here, Alex, if you can get the mic and you guys can introduce yourself, and then Aaron, I'll have you introduce yourself after Tom and Yan.
Yeah, my name is I'm from the Environment Science Division.
Hi, Tom Wall. I'm from GSS. Let's talk about the project.
Yeah, talk about the project.
Okay, so Yan and I are actually working together on a program development rotation. So there's, in GSS we do a lot of infrastructure modeling and decision making. In EBS they do lots of climate modeling and focused on climate change impact data and decision making. And so we're targeting that towards the electrical power industry, the emergency management and response industry sector, and then also national and global security. And so anyway, that was the focus of our program development rotation. We can talk more about your questions for the program come up.
Aaron, are you still with us? Or not?
You might have me muted.
Hello, Aaron.
Or he's in a tunnel.
Yeah. Well, he was worried he was on a train. He might lose
Still there?
signals. I don't hear him at the moment. So anyhow, so any questions for these folks? Of what it's been like, what's worked, what's,
Do you guys maybe want to talk about
yeah.
kind of some of the specifics about, like on the chart there, it talks about, experiential learning and commercialization and presentation skills, maybe some of the kind of boot camp aspects of it that you kind of picked up?
Sure. I have the microphone, so I'll
Go ahead.
and then you can talk. So I guess one comment I have as an aside is to something that I didn't fully understand coming into this was the distinction between the program development rotation and an LDRD. So an LDRD is money to develop a new technology or conduct research, and the program development rotation is really focused on taking some sort of technology or research or science that you've already developed and marketing that and building your research program around that, something that already exists, and going out to get funding from other sources, maybe not the usual suspects, so going out to private sector or other partners and pitching it to them to either get funding from them to apply your new technology or your new science, or else to get money to further development or develop the science or technology, to augment it, to do something different with it, to apply it in a different way. So I think coming into this, I sort of wanted to do both and quickly found out that it's, you're not developing something new, you're finding a way to take that out to new potential partners. So that's one thing I would note straight off the bat, so that if you're crafting your applications, you can sort of think about, what angle of your area or your program, how best to communicate that. And then I guess sort of it all fits within this structure. The three things that I really think are beneficial about the program development rotation are support, resources, and exposure. So support, there's lots of people like John and other people in TDC, or was it TCP, to bounce your ideas off of, to, I do not know that much about business. I'm an engineer, so sort of a crash course in entrepreneurship and business development. There's lots of support within TCP for that. Resources, there's lots of support from SEPA. So Jel helped me develop one-pagers and presentations and marketing materials, so things to make your program or your technology look very polished, so that when you're talking to major industry players or potential sponsors, you have a very solid, polished, together-looking message. And also, as a scientist or an engineer, I'm not the best at making a dynamic PowerPoint presentation that's more pictures and fewer words, and so there's a lot of help and resources there to do that too. And then the last is exposure, both inside Argonne and outside of Argonne. There's people that I'm having an opportunity to have meetings with or to talk to in Argonne who, even if I were here for another 5 years, I probably wouldn't know these people. So the opportunity to go talk to a bunch of different higher level folks at Argonne and, talk through your own, in other divisions. So again, to talk to the top people in my division or my directorate, this has been helpful for that. And then also exposure outside of Argonne. So right now we're looking at trade publications and other ways of marketing and getting more exposure for the effort that Yan and I are working on outside of Argonne to try and get the word out and really project this thought leadership in the area that will hopefully be enticing to potential sponsors. I'll stop there. Yan, thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah, I think Tom summarized pretty well what we have learned from this program and what kind of benefits you can get from this program. So I just wanted to add a couple of points because I kind of have a little bit different background from Tom. So I do many fundamental research in climate science, as Andy and Mike probably know because we are from the same division. So I think this program is very productive to me, spending the time as well, because I think there are two things that are extremely helpful. First is the communication skill. As a scientist myself, or some of you guys here, it's really challenging sometimes how you communicate the science that you do on every day to people who are not familiar with your research, and even from like industry sectors, they have very different terminologies, and that's one thing. Another thing, they also have very different focuses. Maybe what you think is very important in their eyes, there may be other things they are more interested in your research. So I think that's very helpful going through this process, because you will have the opportunity to get contact with those people and then have a better understanding of how to make your research more useful to a broader community. So that's one thing I wanted to add, is a communication skill. Definitely, they also organize workshops to be engaged with industrial. I forgot the name, maybe John, you can mention that later. So they also organize the workshop to help you to improve your communication skills in particular. The other thing I wanted to add is that through this experience, with this program development, that also helps me to shape my research as well. For example, before I probably I didn't think that what really the border needs from my domain science, like climate science in particular. What do they need? What else can be done that we don't have that yet? And how can we further develop that kind of capability in our research as well? And then that will, I think it's very helpful for me to personally to shape up my research in future direction. So those are two things that I think this program has been extremely helpful and productive in that perspective. I think overall this is a pretty exciting new experience that definitely will bring new perspectives to your daily research. And plus you get to meet a lot of interesting people. Tom, John, and Alex, and Joe. So I think it's been really pleasant. So.
Hey, Aaron, are you back on?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, will you introduce yourself and your program, and then you can answer that question too.
Okay, I didn't quite catch the question, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So Aaron Greco, I'm a principal material scientist in the Energy Systems Division. I work in the tribology section, and the topic of my rotation kind of evolved during the start of the rotation process. And so I kind of entered into the program with a little bit more of a broader topic on applied materials in extreme environments. And through the process, and this was kind of the advantage of going through this rotation, was I was able to kind of refine it. And so we then refocused it to a topic that we were currently working on an LDRD project and that's in metal additive manufacturing. And so this is a kind of a new topic, not only in a program development sense in terms of reaching out to stakeholders, but also in a research sense. So it's drawing on capabilities from across the lab, from the APS to computational science to my area of materials testing and characterization. And so it was a good opportunity, given the intent of the program development, to kind of reach across the lab and get this kind of coordination on a specific project. And so So yeah, so we've been doing that now. So it's been a little bit of I'd say a challenge, but a challenge in a good way, because since the research topic itself was new, we've had to kind of develop the technology and the techniques that we're trying to build a program development outreach story around. But it's also been helpful in a way because since we are so new with this technology, we're able to use the stakeholder engagement input that we get when we do reach out to companies and funding agencies, and we're able to kind of mold this project as it's being developed. So hopefully I'm still connected and you're still able to hear me.
That's great. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, yeah.
So does anybody have any questions for these folks?
Hey John, this is Ralph.
Oh, hey, Ralph. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, real quick. Introduce yourself and your program too.
Okay, yeah. I did get on halfway through some of the other people there, so right before Aaron started speaking. Yeah. So I'm Ralph Muleisen, so I'm Principal Building Scientist in the Energy Systems Division. And my rotation was a little bit different from the other groups in that the focus was really more of a coordination and development of outward-facing interface to existing programs. So what I'm looking to do is urban science and engineering. We had effort in the past to try to develop an urban science and engineering program. And the way I really looked at this was taking our existing programs that touched on things urban or were cross-cutting in certain areas related to cities, namely my buildings program that I lead here, our grid work, our transportation program, socioeconomic modeling, our atmospheric and environmental programs, and things that kind of are cross-cutting across those. So our critical infrastructure resiliency analysis work, our people sensors development that might be used for environmental or within any of those sectors that might be applied to cities. And my efforts really here are to develop a program that isn't going after expanding like the transportation group and the funding that they might get from the Vehicle Technologies Office or from Department of Transportation, but really find a new client in cities themselves and the universities and the industry people they partner with to solve a different set of problems. It's not doing the core research that enables solutions, it's actually helping cities with those solutions themselves. So it's quite different in that respect. You can kind of think of it as like the way Access is this interface for industry as well as other potential government funders to connect with all the different groups doing battery research here at Argonne. That was the same thing for the urban program. That we can have a comprehensive solution when that's needed, or to act as an integrator and coordinator of all the efforts that we have in those other pillars that go on with cities. And it was a little bit different in that I'm now working with people who are above my pay grade. So we have the leaders of the transportation group, leaders of the grid work. I guess I'm my own leader in buildings, but the interaction with people who are my senior here at the lab has been interesting, and a lot of my efforts have been in trying to get buy-in from them to understand I'm not there to take over their program or to become a center that's going to lead their program or have influence directly over their program, but to be somebody to bring new business to their program, and that they can be a help to me in coordinating the efforts that go around the lab. So it's a different focus, and I wanted to make sure that was clear, because if you have ideas that are in that direction, the lab is interested, and the support you'll get that we've been heard a little bit about before, and you'll hear a little bit more from John, is there for those type of efforts too. They don't just have to be focused in one particular technology area.
Great. Thank you, Rob. So we had a question?
Sure. So I have a bunch of questions. One now and come back and let other people. But for you two specifically, you said you're working together on a rotation. So did you start out working together? Did you both apply separately and come together? And do you both working 50% or is it 25 now? I'm just curious how that works.
Sure. It's a long story. So I originally applied alone, and Randy Gentry, who was the Deputy Division Director of EVS, also applied. And we both had very similar programs. And so we were encouraged during the review process to combine our two proposals. And so we met and decided it would be mutually beneficial and combined our two areas. And he was focused on also on insurance, the insurance industry, and how climate data can be used to inform that, as well as some other applications. So we combined our two applications, and then about 2 months, a month or two after we started the rotation, he took a job at a different laboratory. And so Jan stepped up to really bring the EVS climate science component to the program development rotation. So your other question about splitting time, it's not like, you know, we operate as one person and I have half of the half. So I have support for 50%, Jan has support for 50%. And some weeks I do that, and some weeks I use less. I don't think that there's been a week when I've gone over, but yeah, so did that answer your question? Yes. Great. Jan, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay, cool.
Follow up to that, and more for John over there, would that strengthen a proposal to come in as a combined effort?
Well, I hate to weight things early on, but I think there is a lot of interest from sort of lab leadership on cross-cutting or cross-collaboration across the lab. You know, so anything that, and I think that's our strength, right? You know, one of the things, as I'm relatively new to the lab here, one of the things that I've learned in doing this now and jumping in with both feet and sort of understanding the marketplace, if you will, is one of the things I think that really separates the national lab from universities, right? Because these companies could just go to, you know, UChicago or Northwestern or somebody else, is we've got some amazing tools that universities don't have. Let's put that out there first and foremost, right? The people come here because we have APS and ALCF and CNM and the others. But they also come here because we truly can work multidisciplinary and across the lab. And I think that's always going to make it stronger. And I think it helps the story, right? The narrative that we always should be keeping our minds around is, hey, we want to work with industry. We want to see things get out of the lab and into the real world so we can have impact in society, and we all would like to see what we're working on have great impact. But then part of that narrative also has to be, you know, the other reason I'm working with industry, and I think Jan talked about this very, very elegantly, is to inform us what I should be working on. You know, maybe it changes the direction or slightly alters the direction of my research, so that I have better impact on the basic science and the basic research side of things. And that's a great story to go back to DOE and Office of Science with as well, right? Is to say, part of the reason that we're doing this industry engagement is it's two of the things that you really care the most about, right? We're having impact in the real world by getting technologies out, but we're also going to be working on things that is interesting, you know, 5, 10, 20 years from now for the next stuff. So.
I just wanted to clarify one thing from my previous answer that I think has bearing here, is that we were already working, GSS were already working with EVS on climate impact projects. So I knew that for this, even for just my proposal alone to be successful, would have to have some level of partnership with EVS. And so I you know, it's not like we sort of discovered a new partner in the lab when we were doing this program. We already had one, but this allowed us to formalize it and sort of work in a more formal relationship towards a common goal, which I think has been beneficial.
This is Ralph. I will say, if you look at everybody who got awards, everybody is cross-director. Nothing here is within one director.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
That may help you.
Yeah, I think that may be an indication, but I'm not going to say it has to happen.
And so, yeah, for all of you that are working this program now, so the goal of $10 million in annual funding is kind of giant, right? So I'm kind of wondering how you guys feel about that and how you think it's going and how much that is driving what you're doing. Does it seem realistic?
Aaron or Ralph, you guys want to start off?
Yeah, I'll start out. I'm not afraid to talk. When we started this out, it wasn't clear that the large number of 10. I think actually with the original stuff that was sent out for the first time, it was saying a few $1 million in a few years, and that kind of grew to a $10 million program. And so, is it a daunting task? Yes, but if you look at the scale of the projects that we are looking at, in the case of Aaron, a key new fundamental manufacturing and science and analysis capability in an emerging area, it isn't outrageous. If we're talking here about me coordinating urban work and going after the literally trillions of dollars of infrastructure investment that's going to be going on by cities throughout the nation over the next decade, $10 million a year is not that much. So it's like, oh gosh, I have to get there in 3 years. That is the goal. But the idea here is more than what you will be asked to do through your as you go on is explain how you expect to get to that. But the idea isn't here, well, okay, if I'm trying to get to 10 million in 3 years or 5 years, I'm at 5 million next year. The expectation is that this is not just a linear progression. It's going to be, you hope that maybe you've got something by the end of this rotation and you won't have to be covered at 50% to continue the work going on. And that way into the second year, you've got some proposals that you're covering your salary to continue on the effort you're doing and build this up. And that as you show that progress, you will get continued investment from the lab itself. I mean, the idea here is yes, they are hoping here for something targeting $10 million. But does that mean that if you can only show that you can get to 8 because that's a limitation, they won't pick you? I don't think the answer is there. I think one of the things though is if you got, okay, I got a new program, but I've got one potential sponsor, that it's only going to be $5 million a year. You need to either expand the scope of what you're doing to grow into other areas, or start thinking harder about who else amongst the government industry would be willing to pay in a related area.
Perfect.
So they want you to think bigger rather than, I'm going to nail this and have 3 million next year, but that's all the farther I want to go.
Great. Thanks, Ralph. Aaron, how about you?
John, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, did any of my answer come through previously?
No.
All right, I apologize, and I just reconnected, so I missed what Ralph said, so hopefully I don't repeat this, but my main message was if you think of the opportunities bigger than your own specific area of expertise, since most of these programs are cross-lab initiative, you're able to look at funding opportunities that go beyond what you would typically look at. So my one example was I'm currently writing a proposal to AMO, Advanced Manufacturing Office with an ERE, and this call is about utilizing machine learning for additive manufacturing. Now that's not an area of my expertise at all, and I would never thought to write a proposal for that area, but since I'm doing this program, since I'm working with this LDRD project, I'm getting connected with PIs in other areas, and so we're able to kind of coordinate and look at bigger projects and look at opportunities that are beyond my area. So
Great, thanks, Aaron. Tom, are you
Actually, that leads to one other quick point about that, and it's a matter of be liberal in your accounting. If you are enabling somebody else, even if you're not the PI in this project, you're enabling other people through the connection you have, just as Aaron suggested here, okay, he's writing proposals, but even if it's a matter of you're being a small contributor or you're just acting as a connector, as I'm often going to be, I see my role is here, that's all new. If you can count it as new business that has come about because of your connection or because of you connecting people within the lab who weren't connecting, all that counts toward those dollars and is what the lab is looking for. They want growth. And if it's directly because you brought the dollars and you're the PI, won't matter as much as was there a growth of dollars in an area that you helped enable. That's one of the other ways to like, okay, it's not so bad if I'm just helping other people to grow their programs at the same time.
Yep, good point. Thanks, Ralph. Do you guys want to answer or you want to move on? What do you think?
I'll add one small point. So the one thing I'd add is that, well, first of all, 10 million, 3 to 5 years, those are nice round numbers. So I don't think if anyone's, they could have said 8 million over 4 years. I think it's a goal. It's a potential that your program has the potential to get that much money. Like I've never felt like that was an expectation where if I don't meet that, I'm kicked out or I lose my job or, like I think that it's, are you thinking broadly enough that your program has the potential to grow to a large research program as signified by $10 million over a mid-time period, 3 to 5 years. So, I think that's all that's trying to capture. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll talk later. Yeah, okay.
So when you say that it's 50% of your time on this program, what kinds of activities are you actually doing?
Start us off. Lots of meetings. So, which is good. So there are lots of meetings with the folks at TCP. There's lots of meetings with folks in SEPA. There's lots of like I'm deadline driven, so I find it very helpful to have a meeting every, one-on-one meeting every week with John, and a meeting every other week with the broader team. Helps me keep moving forward. But there's support to go to conferences. There's support to, just like the time it takes to craft a good email to a potential sponsor, to have a phone call with a sponsor. There's all the little stuff that I think we were doing anyway, but you shuffle a 15 or 30-minute conversation onto a cost code, or you do it, for something unrelated. And so this just formalizes that. So I've not had any problem finding 50% or 20 hours a week of stuff to take up my time to do this, because a lot of it are things that I was trying to do already. I just now have the opportunity to do a lot more of it, and be a lot more honest in my accounting for my time. So did that answer your question? Sure, okay.
I think you don't have to feel like you have to use 50% of your time. For me, I don't think I use 50% at all. But I use as much as I have the time to go to the meetings, talking to people, developing opportunities. For example, talk to people from energy science, aside from GSS division, and work on proposals that's maybe interesting to like other agencies I usually don't submit proposals to. One example is that we did a proposal with folks from energy science to NIST last year, and those things you can put it on your time spent on the program development. I'm planning to respond to an NSF call. Maybe I can use that time to do the proposal writing as well. So those things can be very helpful, because otherwise you have to pretty much use your spare time to do those kind of, if you want to expand your research and working with other divisions, usually are not funded by your I don't know, like your parent programs.
Aaron, anything else, or is that?
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, also the external stakeholder engagement. That's kind of what I'm doing now, is just I'm out meeting with companies and, you know, kind of a two-way street perspective of trying to tell them what we have, what capabilities we have to kind of gate to excite their interest, but also to kind of bounce the concept of what we're working on and how relevant it is to that industry space. And so, you know, we do these kinds of things as researchers on specific projects, but this just gives you a little bit more focus on doing that.
Ralph, anything to add?
Well, I guess if I'm honest in my accounting here, I'm probably spending 30 or 40 hours a week on this. I don't mean to scare you, but while some people have a topic that may be a little more narrow, I'm spending 30, 40 hours a week. So that means my work weeks are getting to be 50, 60, 70 hours sometimes, especially as you do travel. So, and John can attest with this problems of trying to schedule me. With my topic being here, interacting with people in government, universities, and cities, I'm out a lot. I'm at a resiliency conference here that has got people from federal government, cities, universities, as well as a few other labs. Give a talk, but mostly to listen and do networking. But I'm traveling probably every other week for 2 or 3 days and see. Yeah, I guess it's every other week. I look at the number of trips I've had so far this year, and actually since October, it is literally about every other week. You may not have to do that, but if you are looking in an area that has you interacting with many different groups of people, expect to have an awful lot of travel.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, and I would add to that as well. I mean, I think simplistically you've heard that here, but part of this program is really to get out of the lab. I mean, that's a big part of it, is to get out and actually, you've got this great research topic. In our parlance, we call it a value proposition. So you think there's a big problem out there, you've got the solution, very much sort of a science and engineering concept. We think we have it. Everybody I've talked to in the lab agrees that it's a big, that we're on the right path. Let's actually go out, talk to folks in industry, government, whatever, ideally all of the above, and have them tell us if we're on the right path, and better yet, tell us if we're not on the right path, where do we need to go, and give us some direction on that. And that's a lot of what these folks are doing as well, as trying to get out. Not only to conferences, but to one-on-one meetings with folks, either as follow-up from conferences or people that they've met along the way as well.
Anybody else have anything before?
Just hold on a minute.
So kind of logistically speaking, you guys mentioned accounting for your time and all that stuff. So how much reporting back to John and TD or TCP do you guys do as part of this?
From a cost code standpoint, it's just the cost code in Dayforce, right? So.
Right. I mean, I'm wondering how much reporting do you say, I've met with these sponsors today, this is how I'm developing it, this is how I'm furthering my program. Do you require reports per month, or how does that work?
What I've tried to implement, because I'm not a big fan of everybody having to sit down and write reports, it's thank you. So one of the things that I implemented from the very beginning is what I call one-on-one meetings. So we ideally have, and we put it on the calendar for every week, and it's really just to check in, what's hot, what are things we should be working on, where do I need help, those types of things. and use that sort of as a running report, if you will. And again, with travel and all that type of stuff, obviously it doesn't happen every week. But we stay on top of what are the hot topics. You know, what happens as we can get along and all that kind of good stuff. So we don't have a lot of formal reporting. The other part that probably isn't obvious in this that we try to do is we try to have regular reviews with lab management as well. So, you know, that helps with your visibility, but it also helps get feedback from them. You know, ideally, a lot of these folks have already done the stuff we're trying to do, right? They've built their own programs. Some of them are ALDs and lab directors. So ideally, we try to get in front of, say, the Commercialization Council at least once a quarter and get their feedback on how are we progressing, how are we going along, and then in front of the ALDs and DDs at least a couple times a year as well from that standpoint to really keep things moving along. So it's not super formalized of writing reports and doing all that kind of stuff. As long as things are getting done. If things aren't getting done, then that may change, but thankfully, so far with this group, things are getting done. Anything to add?
Things will be a little self-documenting. You're going to have, at the beginning, it's going to be the presentations and the marketing materials that you put together, or the white papers you put together. It's then going to be the conferences and presentations you go to, the proposals that you write. So while there's no reason for you to write up a report of, I wrote a proposal and here's a summary of my proposal, when you can plop the proposal and the abstract out. I mean, there's no point in doing that.
Yep, good point.
All right, last one. So it sounds like from what you guys have said that some of your topics are kind of broader, so you can kind of talk about or grow business in a bunch of different areas, but I'm wondering how strict you are. So if we come in with one topic or one focus area, but then we have interests and we have research in other areas, so at the same time developing both under the same you know, I'm on 4 different projects right now, and there's one that I'd like to further develop, but some of them overlap and some of them can be developed by the same people, so I'm curious how that all works.
Also a good question. So I think one of the things you'll find out as you go through this is it's sort of a fine line, because it can't be, if it becomes incredibly narrowly focused, then it's a project and not a program. That's in the way that I think of these things. So if I'm only focused on, you know, so if Jan would have come to us and said, I want to do regionalized climate modeling for Southern California, that may be an incredibly important topic, but it's pretty specific, right? So it's very focused on one thing. And it's not going to lead to a program, and we're never going to get to the, you know, large dollars of funding and stuff that we're talking about. On the other side, we don't want it to be so broad that I'm going to do research, right? It has to be in that path. So I would highly recommend, as part of the application, of saying, you know, sort of this is the, you know, sort of a broad topic of what I'm trying to do. Very much like, and Aaron can probably speak to this a little bit as well, but very much from, you know, from Aaron's perspective, you know, in the application, it was really around, you know, looking at characterization of materials in extreme environments, you know, basically. I probably just brutalized that, Aaron, but, you know, that concept. And then when we really sort of talked to him about it and dove in a little bit, we said, hey, it's a great topic, but maybe just to sort of put a little bit of focus on it, and we've got, you know, be opportunistic. Additive manufacturing is something that's talked about a lot, so let's start with that. And again, I mean, the ultimate goal is, you know, maybe it's additive manufacturing for the next, you know, handful of years, and then it expands beyond that into other areas. Aaron, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a good practice when you're considering, you know, an application, you know, take into consideration the things we talked about, the expectation for funding, the level of funding in a few years, the expectation expectation that it's a cross-lab initiative, and kind of put yourself in your future self's shoes of trying to pitch this, whatever concept it is, to companies or specific funding agencies. And it'll kind of help you think about, well, is this too narrow, or do I need to broaden it? Is it too broad? I would say in hindsight that's kind of how I would have approached it going into it.
Well stated. Great. Hope you.
So what are the main criteria you look at when you're selecting people to interview, and who's on the panel that decides that?
I'll answer the second question first, and then we'll come back to the first one. So who's on the panel? It's actually a fairly broad group, and I'm going to encourage to continue that. So there are some people from TCP. There's some people from the Commercialization Council. The Commercialization Council is made up, for those that don't know, of at least a person from all the different directorates. So it may be the chief operating officer of the directorate, or a program manager of a directorate. All of the center directors are part of the Commercialization Council. We have folks in legal that take part in the interview process and the review process. So ideally what we try to do is have a broad mix of folks, so that we're not looking at it just from sort of me looking at it from a business perspective, but also looking at it from the science perspective as well, to look at it from that standpoint. To your first question, I think you've heard that a fair amount here today. Is I would look at something that is cross-cutting across the lab, cross collaboration. And the reason I say that is an advantage is, theoretically, and you guys know this better than I do, but theoretically, if you have a great idea that's just you, or just you and a couple other PIs in your own division, that should be something that you can go to your group leader, your division leader, and do that within the organization. That becomes harder, as you all know, as I try to go and talk to somebody across the hall that's in a different division or a different directorate. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to do, is be able to, I wouldn't say knock down those walls, but put some windows and some doors in those walls, so it makes it easier to work across. And then again, I think from a topic standpoint, something that you're really passionate about, something that you're really working on, and something that you think that if I spend some time on this and have some support on this, I truly have the ability to get significantly more funding than I'm getting today. Let's use it as that topic to start with, right? Sort of, if I'm working with one sponsor and I'm getting, $100,000 a year, if I put more effort in it, can I get $1 million from that one sponsor, or can I take that same thing to other sponsors and get money from other places to do that? So, does that answer your question? Any other questions? Perfect. Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming and for all the questions, and thanks again for the cohort 1. And Aaron and Ralph, thank you so much for calling in. And I look forward to talking to you more, and you can always reach me if there's other questions down the line, for sure. All right?
And don't be afraid to send us an email or stop by our offices and ask us. We can always charge us to our rotation time.
Nice. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.